Hey, all, good morning. How are you? I am here on a Friday morning with my coffee here at my desk and getting ready for a really big Daily Doug video later today. But before I get started on that, I have some thoughts and just some general ideas as follow up to the last couple of videos that we've made here. Um, I am a Zennial, what they call a Zennial. I was born in 1977. It's Xennial, or otherwise known as the Oregon Trail generation. And if you're also looking forward to your 50th birthday, I know you, and you're in America, I know you know what the Oregon Trail is. I hope you don't die from dysentery. Friends, but that's a micro generation that's at the very end of Generation X, which is categorized from people being born from 1965 to 1980. After that, I think it's what? Millennials, right? Um, so it was a really interesting time to be born because my childhood was free range. We didn't have any cell phones. We really didn't have cable. Long distance phone calls, you had time limits on. If you wanted to call your favorite girl, you had to talk to her dad first, all that sort of stuff, right? We learned about the world in an analog society and have become accustomed to it now in a fully broadband digital society. And our brains are a little scrambled, but I think we're okay. I think we're okay. Here's the thing, y'all, that I was thinking about. Because I was born in 1977, I was not old enough to really enjoy some of the great science fiction movies that was coming out in the late 70s as they came out. I looked it up. When did Superman, the first Superman movie, first appear on network television? It was on ABC in February of 1982. I would have been almost five. And I think I remember it. I remember being with my family, and you get done with Sunday church, and then you come back home for Sunday afternoon, and you go out and play, and you get all sweaty, and then your parents make you come in before you're done playing, and then get another shower so that you can get dressed in your Sunday clothes again and go back to church on Sunday night. Um, but after church on Sunday night, you get back home and hey, look, movie's on. Sit in front of the television, and up comes Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader and Han Solo, and I was mesmerized by it. And I remember as a young kid being just made aware of these movies and the universes that they present. And I was at that impressionable age where it's like, oh yeah, this is the different kind of storytelling. This is really great stuff. My mom is a librarian, was a librarian, so I did a whole lot of reading. We had a lot of books around the house. I love reading. Mom read us stories, you know, bedtime stories, whatever, but we always were reading from books. And so you get used to stories. Well, what happens in this story? What happens in this story? And you're too young to really understand metaphor or the difference between a story that's being told versus an account of events that have happened. And it's a little murky, right, in your young brain. But I remember as a 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old kid when some of these movies start coming on network television in the early to mid 80s, and I start to really realize just how much power and just good stuff we can learn from the stories that are told in these movies. And what kind of came into my head, because I was still believing in Santa at that time, that Santa was real and not a mythology, right? And I started to get the same idea about Jesus. And I thought, well, what? Jesus is just a superhero, right? Jesus is the superhero in the comic books of a long dead past civilization. And so throughout pretty much all of my life, that's how I ended up reading the Bible. The Bible is a comic book, y'all. The Bible is an account of stories passed down, oral stories, oral tradition. Sometimes they could be manifest, sometimes they could be based on um, things that actually happened, but they're stories. They're told to try to entertain and inform. And it doesn't, and it's not, what came into my head, and this was from an early age, y'all, is that this isn't meant, it wasn't ever meant to be an accounting of what took place on January 3rd, first year, and we have the news, like a news feed. It's not that book. It's a comic book without illustrations. And the noble things that I learned about the life of Jesus, especially, I equated to the noble things that I was learning about all of these other superheroes who were just as real to me as the Jesus that I was reading about in this Bible. So when I learn about Superman, this is a character who balances a godlike power with unwavering human empathy. And I think it's one of the reasons why Superman stays so palpably strong, especially in the hearts of Americans, because he's selfless. He puts the needs of others before his own. He sacrifices his own needs, and he doesn't expect a reward or applause. He just does it because he knows he's right. He knows it's right. It's the right kind of thing to do. He shows compassion. He shows gentleness, even though he has immense strength. He has this uncompromising morality that, he even refuses to kill, even though he could do it like that, you know? He's humble. He's hopeful. And he becomes the best of us because of the way in which the writers put this idea of Superman in the story. We can imagine, well, if he was treated to this type of issue, or he comes up against this type of bad person and he has to solve this problem and he has a moral quandary of how to do it. How will he get through it? What will he do? And we get to write our expectation of what a noble and selfless and good individual might do in that situation. And we write that truth so that we can continue to learn from it. I remember learning similar things about Spider-Man, reading the comics, seeing the cartoons. Spider-Man, another mythological creation that, of course, isn't a real person. Peter Parker doesn't exist, but he does exist in our own imaginations. And his sacrifice, his integrity, his compassion, his accountability, with great power comes great responsibility. We learn all of that. And we're like, yeah, that looks really good on Peter Parker. I think I'll try on a bit of that and see if I can make myself a little bit better. It's just human nature to do that. And we don't need for the underlying people, characters in that story, we don't need for them to be actual historical characters to understand the story, the morality of the story, the learning that we can do and have from going through that story with these characters. Lord of the Rings, a similar thing. A fantasy novel or a moral treatise. Why can't it be both? You know, Samwise Gamgee, my favorite character from all of that. Selfless, loyal, the best friend, example of friendship and loyalty that I've ever seen. You know, sacrificing his own humanity, hobbitry, if you will, um, and doing everything for Frodo that he can and staying loyal. We can learn from that, you know? Um, resisting temptation. Gandalf, Faramir, Galadriel, they all, at some point in the story, they refuse to take the ring for themselves because they not only recognize its power, but they choose to say no to that temptation because they know that bad things can happen to them if they start to lose themselves within that temptation. And we can learn that. You know, Frodo shows remarkable courage, but he also shows a whole lot of empathy and mercy by how he treats Gollum. There's all of these characters, you know, we put characters in situations that in some way can mimic our own daily interactions, and we can remember how the person in the story acted, and we can find the moral and the just decision and the moral and the just way to behave in that particular action, in that particular situation, because of the reading that we've done, because of the thinking that we've done, because of the um, time that we've spent with characters that do the right thing and find a moral and just and empathetic way to work through a problem in our stories. And so I'm there as a kid thinking, Jesus is a superhero. Works for me, you know? And it wasn't until really later on in my life that I started to realize that not very many, it seemed, people that were also involved in that Christian faith like I was were treating the scripture like I was. They were reading it like um, the etched word of God, like this happened and all of this is real and you can't doubt any of it. We've been through all of that, right? And it just struck me as a missed opportunity. A missed opportunity. If I was to be presented with the comic book series of the Tales of Superman, and they were presented as chapters and books and a whole collection, and it says, read about, this wonderful Superman. And if I was expected to have to believe that Clark Kent really was born on Krypton, that Krypton really exploded, that he flew here in a spacecraft, that he crashed in Kansas and was adopted by two white parents, and he was named Clark Kent, and all this, and this. If I have to believe all of that actually happened to understand the goodness in Superman's character, then we've really lost the plot of the power of storytelling and the place of storytelling itself. Jesus is a superhero. Jesus is a character in a 2,000-year-old comic book. And if all of the people that really loved Jesus and his story were to just be comfortable with that, then I don't think we'd get nearly as many really dangerous offshoots of dedicated fans trying to remake the world in some way that they see it as it connects to that story. You know, we wouldn't have rabid Christians really cheering on an ongoing genocide at the hands of the Israeli government, because they want to support Israel, because if all of this crap is going on in the Middle East, that means the end of the world is coming. And we want to hasten the end of the world because we want to meet Jesus. In fact, we're American white Christians. Jesus will probably come to our country club first. Y'all, let's make this happen. It's crazy, right? If people just knew, if we put Jesus in a cape and red boots and made it obvious that, yeah, this is mythology. It was never, ever meant to be taken as a newsreel of what happened 2,000 years ago. It's just our stories. The world would be a better place, wouldn't it? The world would be a better place. And so that's my understanding of God and of Jesus and of the entire Christian universe, right? It's analogous to the Marvel universe or the DC universe. It's just the old Judean universe. And I can learn from it. I can set the book down on the counter and leave it for a while. I can come back to it. It can entertain me. It can help me through my own issues in life, but it does not hold power over me. And there's the difference. So my thing is that I just wish that more people would think of reading the Bible or the Quran or the Torah as reading the graphic novels of ancient civilizations. Imagine if we had a similar graphic novel of the Inca civilization or the Maya civilization, and we had all of these scrolls and text, and we could put them together, and we could not only just see what they were talking about, but learn what their stories were. Amazing, right? We don't have to make ourselves slaves to the translated and highly fought over and intentionally picked language that exists in these books today. We don't have to do that. If you want to read them and enjoy. If you don't want to read them, don't read them and enjoy your life. You know, but if you read them, just know Jesus is a superhero. He's not the Son of God. Or we call the Son of God a superhero. You know, if Superman is the son of Jor-El, then Jesus is the Son of God. It's just a retelling of the same types of stories for new societies and new times that bring in elements of our life today that help us in ways that maybe the people back 2,000 years ago could have been helped by the hearing of these stories, you know? But that's just what they are, stories. It's not ever, it wasn't ever meant to be literally true, you know? And the longer that I got into and stayed in Christian communities, you know, the dichotomy really became clear. There are those that and it's hard to have these conversations with Christians because you don't want to open yourself up to, well, I don't really believe, but I'm here. Well, I don't really believe. Or how do you believe? Do you believe the right way? I believe the right way. Do you believe the right way? It's difficult to have those conversations while you're in that circle of friends. I know that many of the friends that I've had in uh, Christian circles throughout my life believe and understand things the same way that I've just told it here. But there's enough that don't and treat it as the news feed from 2,000 years ago and that it's the infallible word of a God. And that's where we lose our rational hold on really what connects all of us together. And we get bits of us that can be manipulated, and then societies start to break down in certain ways. And so that's just what I've been seeing this week. That's what I've been thinking about. And I really didn't say this in the other two videos. I read the Bible cover to cover multiple times. It's a comic book. That's all it is. It doesn't mean it doesn't have validity. It doesn't mean it doesn't have core morality within the story, even though the people in the story are sometimes less than noble, right? But through those stories, we can learn. And for most Christian, for a lot of Christian communities out there, I think they do that very well. It's just those that are just really buying into this in an unnatural, unrational way that leads them to put their trust in the wrong types of people, in the wrong types of systems. And it causes society not only to start to break down, but it causes unnecessary pain and suffering. And as a Zennial who now lives on his phone and online, we can see all around the world the suffering and the pain that's going on at the direct hands of religious zealots. And so that's why in my first big video that came out, The Greatest Lie in the History of Humanity, remember what I'm considering the greatest lie is that God is made in or that we are made in God's image. For me, that's the lie, because it's exactly opposite. God is made in our image. Superman is made in our image. Spider-Man is made in our image. Aslan the lion from The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is made in our image. I mean, he gives his life. Selfless love. You know, Aslan. You know, another great series of books, right? But are they history books? No. And we understand that. So that's what I'm up to today. I don't want to keep talking because I'll keep repeating the same old stuff, y'all. But yeah, that's it. Treat your religious heroes as the superheroes that they are and the comic book heroes that they were always meant to be. And we will have less of this religious zealotry and evil infiltrating our human society. Yeah. So That's my thoughts on a Friday. Y'all, thanks for being with me. We'll see you soon.